Hey guys, welcome to the new video. Today I'm gonna go over the nerves of the face in the human model. If you recall, this model right here is in our classroom. We have to identify the nerves in the face. Along with that, we also have to know the foramen, which I will go over in this video as well. I will also go over the brain functions. I made a video like 3 or 2 weeks ago, identifying the brain. In this video, I'm gonna identify it again, except I'm gonna also explain the functions of the brain. Okay, let's get started. So before I begin, these three nerves, which is the ocular motor, trochlear, and abducent nerve, is not tagged in the facial model. I asked her yesterday, and that's what she said. She's not going to be tagging it. A win's a win. Okay. So starting off with the first nerve, we have the olfactory. The olfactory is these structures right here. That right there is the olfactory nerve, or the first nerve. The second one is the optic. The optic is this nerve that goes through like that, on top of the eye. That right there is the optic nerve. The fifth nerve, which is the trigeminal, is this nerve right here. That right there is the trigeminal. You can also see it in this angle too. Right there is the fifth nerve. Now the reason why it's called trigeminal is because it splits into 3 different nerves. Okay. Okay. The sixth nerve is the facial. The facial is this nerve right here, going through like that. It's like a C shape. That right there is the facial. And if I recall, that's the seventh nerve. The eighth nerve is right next to the trigeminal. It's branching off with the trigeminal. So right here is the eighth nerve, the auditory nerve, or the vestibular cochlear nerve, but it's also known as the auditory nerve. The eighth nerve. The glossopharyngeal, or the ninth nerve, is this nerve right here. That right there is the glossopharyngeal. The ninth nerve. Oops. IX. The 10th nerve, which is the vagus, is this nerve right here, along with this nerve going down here. That right there is also the vagus nerve. The 11th nerve, which is the spinal accessory, in this angle, the spinal accessory is this nerve right here. And then from the other angle, the spinal accessory nerve is also right here too. Okay. And then finally, we have the hypoglossal. The hypoglossal is this nerve right here. Okay, that should be it with the face model. All right, now going over the foramen of the nerves. This is where the nerves enter from in the skull. So, starting off with the first nerve, we have the olfactory. The olfactory starts in the cribriform plate of ethmoid, which is right here. That right there is the cribriform plate, and that's where the olfactory nerve enters from. The second nerve is the optic, which can be found in the optic foramen in the sphenoid. So this right here is the optic foramen or the optic canal. The third nerve is the ocular motor. Now, before I begin, the next few nerves I'm about to mention, it's the ocular motor, trochlear, trigeminal, and abducent. They all enter from the superior orbital fissure. Now, with the trigeminal, if you look in the right of your screen, there's 3 different foramens where it enters from. But Dottenhoff says we only have to know 1 foramen, so I would recommend to chug in trigeminal with superior orbital fissure. So again, ocular motor is in the superior orbital fissure. So this right here is the superior orbital fissure. In there is also the trochlear, trigeminal, and the abducent. The trigeminal is also in these foramens as well, but I wouldn't recommend to know them in that foramen. But I'll just put it. So right here you can find the trigeminal in the foramen rotundum and the foramen ovale. Okay, going over the facial, you can find it in 2 foramens, which is the internal auditory meatus and the stylomastoid foramen. I don't have the stylomastoid foramen, so I'm just going to go over the internal auditory meatus. And the internal auditory meatus is this foramen right here. And it's the facial, so it's the 7th nerve. In the internal auditory meatus as well, you can also find the auditory nerve, or the vestibulocochlear nerve. So it's the 8th nerve. Okay. The glossopharyngeal, which is this nerve. This foramen right here. This big old foramen, the jugular foramen. You can find the glossopharyngeal, which is the 9th, the vagus, which is the 10th, and the spinal accessory, which is the 11th. So in the jugular foramen, you can find 3 nerves: the glossopharyngeal, vagus, and spinal accessory. And then finally, we have the hypoglossal nerve. The hypoglossal is the easiest because you can't see it from this angle, man, but it should be right here, somewhere here. If you see a hole there, that right there is the hypoglossal foramen, and that's where the hypoglossal nerve is from as well. And that should be it with the foramen of the nerves. Alright, now summarizing as to what I just said in a picture diagram, the first nerve is the olfactory. So right here is the olfactory nerve that enters in the cribriform plate. The second nerve is the optic nerve. The optic nerve is this nerve right here that enters in the optic foramen or the optic canal. The ocular motor, the trochlear, the trigeminal, and abducent nerve enters from the superior orbital fissure. The superior orbital fissure is this foramen right here. As you can see, these three nerves right here, I'm not sure as to which nerve it is, but it's one of the three I just mentioned, which is the abducent, ocular motor, and the trochlear. So one of these nerves are one of those, right? And then the trigeminal is right here because it enters into three different foramen, which is the superior orbital fissure, foramen rotundum, and the foramen ovale. So right here's the trigeminal nerve. With the facial nerve and the vestibular cochlear or the auditory nerve enters from the internal acoustic meatus or the internal auditory meatus foramen. So right here is the facial, and right here is the auditory nerve. The glossopharyngeal, vagus, and the spinal accessory nerve enters from the jugular foramen. So right here, oh crap, this right here is the glossopharyngeal. Is it? Yeah, glossopharyngeal. Right here is the vagus, and then right here is the spinal accessory nerve. And then finally we have the hypoglossal. The hypoglossal is in its own foramen, right here in the hypoglossal canal. Alright, now memorizing this information in one go is kind of like impossible to do so. So Dodenhoff kind of like gave us like a tip on how to remember it. So she told us to make a catchphrase that's very personalized to us. And I'm gonna show you guys as to what I made up. So the catchphrase that I made up is owls often overlook the trembling Arctic, flying above glaciers, venting soft harmonies. So I made that catchphrase up to remember the nerve names. So again, owls often overlook the trembling Arctic, flying above glaciers, venting soft harmonies. Now this thing is all preference, by the way. This is just my way of remembering it. Okay, not only do we have to know the name of the nerve, we also have to know if the nerve is a sensory, motor, or both. So a catchphrase that I got from Dodenhoff is, some say marry money, but my brother says bad boys marry money. So some say marry money, but my brother says bad boys marry money. Sensory, motor, both. And then with the foramen, I don't have a catchphrase to remember it because I low-key have it down already. So right here in the olfactory, you can find it in the cribriform plate, the optic foramen, and then with the four nerves, the ocular motor, trochlear, trigeminal, and abducent, just know it as the superior orbital fissure. With the facial and auditory, just know it as the internal auditory meatus. With the glossopharyngeal, vagus, and spinal accessory, just know it as the jugular foramen. And then finally, the hypoglossal, just know it by the hypoglossal foramen because that's the only foramen, right? We also have to know the location. The location for the olfactory is in the telencephalon. For ocular motor and trochlear, it's in the mesencephalon. After trochlear, we get to trigeminal, and then from trigeminal all the way to spinal accessory is the pons. And then the hypoglossal is in the brainstem/medulla. So this diagram here is what I would recommend to, draw or write before the test begins. Alright, now, I know I went over the identification of the brain already, but I will go over the thing again, except this time I will be explaining the function of the structures. So let's just get into it. So right here is the spinal cord. That is on the lab list, so you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, now starting off with the myelencephalon. In the myelencephalon, we have the medulla oblongata. The medulla oblongata is this right here. And the function of the medulla oblongata is that it helps control your heartbeat, breathing, and blood pressure. Okay, going over mesencephalon, we have the cerebellum or the cerebellum and the pons. The pons is this structure right here. And the function of the pons is that it is the modulation of consciousness, sleep cycle, pain, posture, tone, and balance. The cerebellum is this structure right here. And the function of the cerebellum is that it is the coordination of movement and balance. Okay. Going over mesencephalon, we have the cerebral peduncles and the corpora quadrigemina. The corpora quadrigemina is this structure right here. And then if you recall from the other video, there's like there's a superior side and an inferior side. So in the superior side right here, that right there is the superior colliculi, and this structure right here, that's the inferior colliculi. But we can just know the structure as a whole and name it as the corpora quadrigemina. Now the function of the corpora quadrigemina is that it controls the position of the head and the eyes in response to visual, auditory, and somatic stimuli, as well as transmit auditory signals. For cerebral peduncles, it's this structure right here. And the functions for the cerebral peduncle is that it is important for body coordination and helps to refine motor movement. Okay. Okay. After the mesencephalon, we have the diencephalon. The diencephalon. So the first structure that we have is the I'm gonna go over in the top first. This structure right here is the pineal gland. The pineal gland's function is that it receives information about the daily light, dark, or day-night cycle from the retinas. The second one is the thalamus. The thalamus is the structure right here. The function of the thalamus is that it regulates sleep, alertness, and wakefulness. We then have the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is kind of like that. Now, the function of the hypothalamus is just homeostasis. And then we have the pituitary gland, which is underneath the hypothalamus. The functions of the pituitary gland is that it produces hormones that controls many bodily functions. Okay, now, and finally we have the telencephalon. The olfactory bulb is this structure right here. The function of the olfactory bulb is that it receives information about smells from the nose and send it to the brain by the way of olfactory tracts. The second one is the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is this structure right here. The function of the corpus callosum is that it is a conduit allowing information to transmit from one side of the brain to the other. Oops. And then with the cerebral hemisphere and the cerebral cortex, in the other video, I put a video explaining it since, it was kind of like difficult for me to explain it. So I'll put it again here.
The brain is made up of two halves, known as cerebral hemispheres. When looking at the brain from a lateral view, which just means looking at it from the side, we will only see one cerebral hemisphere. The landmarks I will point out are found on both cerebral hemispheres. The surface of the cerebral hemispheres is covered with a thick layer of brain tissue known as the cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is folded to create more surface area, forming these ridges, known as gyri, and grooves, known as sulci.
Okay, now the functions of the cerebral hemisphere is that it controls muscle functions and also controls speech, thought, emotions, reading, writing, and learning. For cerebral cortex, the functions of it is that it is a language, memory, reasoning, thought, learning, decision-making, emotion, intelligence, and personality. And that should be it with the functions of the brain.